The atmosphere behind the ancient, towering stone walls of Windsor Castle was suffocating, heavy with the weight of centuries of tradition and an absolute, uncompromising resolve. For years, the British monarchy had endured an unrelenting storm of public tell-alls, explosive docuseries, scathing memoirs, and calculated media maneuvers that systematically eroded the quiet dignity of the crown. But on this overcast morning, the period of quiet endurance, diplomatic restraint, and strategic patience officially came to a dramatic, unprecedented end. King Charles III, standing side by side with his eldest son and heir, Prince William, drew a line in the historical sand. The decision had not been made in heat or anger, but through months of solemn, behind-the-scenes deliberations involving the highest ranks of the royal household, constitutional experts, and senior ministers. The verdict was absolute, undeniable, and ruthless. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle were to be completely stripped of their royal titles, systematically excised from the official lineage of the working monarchy, and permanently banished from the fabric of royal life. To understand the sheer magnitude of this constitutional earthquake, one must look at the long, fractured history leading up to this fateful intervention. When Prince Harry and Meghan Markle stepped back from their roles as senior working royals during the infamous Megxit split, a delicate agreement was forged under the watchful eye of the late Queen Elizabeth II. The Sandringham Summit was meant to establish a functional balance. The Sussexes would seek financial independence while retaining their noble titles, provided they respected the institution and refrained from commercializing their royal status. Yet, in the eyes of Buckingham Palace and the British public, that delicate pact was shattered almost immediately. What followed was a multi-year media campaign that laid bare private family conversations, exposed internal institutional friction, and leveled damaging accusations against senior members of the royal family. For a time, the palace maintained its long-standing operational doctrine: never complain, never explain. But as the monarchy transitioned into a new era under King Charles III, the strategy shifted from silent endurance to active preservation. Inside the private audience rooms of the palace, Prince William's stance had hardened into steel. As the Prince of Wales and the future king, William viewed the ongoing attacks not merely as personal betrayal, but as a direct existential threat to the stability and future of the crown he was born to inherit. Sources close to the royal household reveal that while King Charles initially held on to hope for a paternal reconciliation, William recognized that the divide had crossed a line of no return. The institution could not survive if its core integrity was repeatedly undermined from within its own extended family. William's influence in these high-level discussions proved decisive. He argued that allowing the Sussexes to retain the prestige and global influence of their royal titles, while actively monetizing their connection to the crown and criticizing its very existence, was an intolerable contradiction that cheapened the monarchy. Together, sovereign and heir aligned in total unity, determined to protect the future of the House of Windsor at any cost. The formal mechanism of this royal banishment was executed with surgical precision. Through official legal channels and constitutional maneuvers coordinated with Parliament, the formal letters patent were prepared to systematically strip Meghan Markle of her title as the Duchess of Sussex, alongside the revocation of Prince Harry's remaining formal peerages. No longer would they be permitted to use the styled designations that had anchored their global brand. The royal website was quietly updated in real time, removing their names from the top tiers of the royal family tree and placing them firmly at the bottom of official listings, stripped of any formal duties, patronages, or institutional backing. Further, strict protocols were enacted prohibiting the couple from utilizing royal insignia, official crests, or any implied state representation in their future commercial ventures. The message emanating from London was unmistakable. The privileges of royalty are inextricably linked to the duties of service, and without service, the titles cease to exist. Across the Atlantic, in the affluent enclave of Montecito, California, the news struck like a lightning bolt, shattering the carefully curated narrative of the Sussex global empire. For years, the couple had built their commercial strategy around their unique status as modern, progressive royals operating independently in America. Their multi-million-dollar production deals, high-profile public appearances, and international ventures derived immense cultural currency from their formal royal identity. Stripping those titles exposed a stark reality. Without the official sheen of the British crown, they were no longer global representatives of a thousand-year-old monarchy, but private citizens competing in a saturated celebrity landscape. The sudden isolation was absolute. The institutional bridge back to the United Kingdom was not merely raised, it was completely dismantled, leaving the couple adrift from the very tradition that had given them their global platform. Within the United Kingdom, the public reaction to the news was swift, intense, and deeply divided, reflecting the passionate debate that had surrounded the couple for years. Outside the gates of Buckingham Palace, crowds gathered as major news outlets broadcasted breaking updates around the clock. For many traditionalists and royal loyalists, the decision was seen as a long-overdue act of decisive leadership by King Charles and Prince William, a necessary clearing of the air that restored authority and respect to the crown. Columnists and royal commentators praised the monarch for showing that the survival and dignity of the institution came before personal sentiment. However, critics and global observers viewed the move through a starkly different lens, framing the formal banishment as an overly punitive measure that permanently severed any remaining hope for family healing, cementing an ideological and personal divide that would echo for generations. Yet inside the palace walls, the focus remained fixed entirely on the future. King Charles III, conscious of his legacy and the need to streamline the monarchy for a modern era, viewed this decisive action as the final step in securing stability for the crown. By removing the constant cloud of speculation and controversy surrounding the Sussexes, the royal family could recenter its efforts entirely on public service, charitable endeavors, and representing the nation. Prince William, standing beside his father, represented the uncompromising resolve of the next generation, a leader prepared to make the hardest decisions to ensure that the institution he inherits remains strong, unified, and protected against internal or external disruption. The banishment of the Sussexes marked the end of an era of uncertainty and the beginning of a cold, clear reality. The House of Windsor had chosen its path, and there was no turning back. The reverberations of this constitutional hammer throw sent shockwaves far beyond the gilded halls of London and the sun-drenched hills of California, fundamentally altering the geopolitical and cultural standing of the House of Windsor. For generations, the British royal family operated on a quiet policy of endurance, absorbing public criticism as a necessary cost of maintaining an ancient institution. But King Charles III and Prince William understood that the modern digital landscape left no room for prolonged ambiguity. By taking this decisive action, the monarch signaled a seismic shift in operational philosophy. The crown was no longer willing to be a passive backdrop for private commercial gain. Inside the halls of Parliament, senior ministers quietly signaled their support, acknowledging that the legal framework governing royal peerages needed to align with the sovereign's firm stance. The removal of the titles was not merely a symbolic slap on the wrist. It was a total severance of official constitutional legitimacy, stripping away every residual perk of state representation, security protocols, and diplomatic standing that had once shielded the Sussexes. In Montecito, the initial shock quickly gave way to high-level crisis meetings among the couple's closest advisors, public relations strategists, and legal counsel. For years, the foundation of their commercial strategy rested on a delicate duality, operating as American lifestyle figures while simultaneously wielding the historic prestige of British nobility. That dual identity had secured lucrative multi-year deals with streaming giants, publishing houses, and global speaking agencies. But with the formal title removal enacted, market analysts and Hollywood executives began privately re-evaluating the long-term value of the Sussex brand. Without the official titles, the unique selling proposition that set them apart from standard Hollywood celebrities was severely diminished. The harsh economic truth began to set in. Stripped of their royal designations, they were no longer a bridge between two worlds, but private individuals navigating an increasingly competitive media market where novelty fades quickly without continuous institutional backing. Meanwhile, behind the heavy oak doors of Kensington Palace, Prince William's role in shaping the future of the monarchy became undeniably clear. Observers noted that while King Charles brought a paternal solemnity to the decision, William brought an unyielding tactical clarity. The Prince of Wales was acutely aware of the historical precedents set by past royal crises, particularly the abdication of 1936, which taught the monarchy that prolonged internal friction poses a far greater threat to the crown than a clean, permanent break. William's vision for his future reign required a streamlined, highly focused core group of working royals who operated with absolute loyalty to the public good. By insisting on a total banishment rather than a half measure, William sent a formidable message to anyone within the royal orbit. Access to the royal name requires absolute dedication to royal duty. There would be no middle ground, no hybrid roles, and no trading on the crown's thousand-year-old heritage for private enterprise. The strategic isolation of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle was further compounded by the quiet, systematic realignment of the royal families in a circle. Senior working royals, including the Princess of Wales, the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh, and Princess Anne, stepped forward to fill the public void with an intensified schedule of engagements, charitable initiatives, and international state visits. This display of unity was carefully engineered to demonstrate continuity and stability to both the British public and the Commonwealth nations. The media narrative inside the United Kingdom rapidly transitioned from the drama of the Sussex exile to the proactive work of the active monarchy. By controlling the narrative and projecting a unified front, the palace effectively neutralized the ongoing barrage of external commentary, rendering the couple's grievances increasingly peripheral to the day-to-day operations of the British state. The international community, too, felt the shift in tone coming from London. Foreign governments and diplomatic corps were formally briefed on the updated protocols regarding the couple's official status. Embassies and high commissions around the globe received clear directives. Harry and Meghan were no longer to be accorded state-level courtesies, official diplomatic access, or government-funded security details reserved for official representatives of the Crown. This administrative lockout effectively ended their ability to conduct pseudo-royal international tour, stripping away the state-backed authority that had previously characterized their foreign appearances. The message was explicitly codified across the globe. Any engagements undertaken by the couple were strictly private business ventures, completely divorced from the British state and the reigning monarch. As the dust began to settle on this historic mandate, the psychological toll on the family dynamic became impossible to ignore. The deep personal estrangement between Prince William and Prince Harry, once viewed as an inseparable brotherhood forged through shared childhood tragedy, was now permanently codified into constitutional history. Friends and former courtiers acknowledged that the personal bridge between the brothers had been dismantled beyond repair. The decision was final, legal, and binding, a cold, calculated necessity designed to protect the throne at the expense of familial unity. King Charles, facing the autumn of his life and reign, had made the ultimate sacrifice required of a sovereign, prioritizing the endurance of the crown over the desires of his younger son. With the first two phases of the purge complete, the focus shifted toward the long-term consequences of this institutional exile. The House of Windsor had successfully drawn its line, insulating itself against further internal disruption, but the broader cultural war was far from over. As Prince Harry and Meghan Markle faced an uncertain future as private citizens in America, stripped of the very titles that define their global presence, the world waited to see how the couple would respond to total banishment from the only world they had ever truly known. The monarchy had spoken with absolute authority, but the final chapter of this historic saga was still waiting to be written. In the immediate wake of this constitutional severance, the long-term reality of exile began to settle over Montecito with an unrelenting weight. Deprived of the historical weight attached to their peerages, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle faced an immediate crisis of branding and identity. For years, their media ventures, philanthropy, and public engagements were anchored by the implicit authority of their royal status. Now operating strictly under their birth names, the couple was forced to pivot completely within an American landscape that value novelty over fadding heritage. The lucrative corporate partnerships that once seemed endless began to demand measurable returns rather than mere association with nobility. Hollywood executives, who had initially rushed to sign the former royals, watched closely as the cultural currency of the Sussex name shifted overnight from exclusive international royalty to standard high-profile celebrity. The buffer was gone, leaving them fully exposed to the ruthless metrics of global entertainment and commercial viability. In response to their complete banishment, whispers began to emerge from the couple's media team regarding a counter-strategy, a potential new wave of media appearances, books, or interviews designed to challenge the legitimacy of the royal family's actions. However, the cultural landscape had fundamentally changed since their initial departure from London. Public appetite for grievances and family exposes had reached a clear saturation point. Where televised tell-alls had once commanded global audiences in the tens of millions, subsequent releases met with growing public fatigue and critical skepticism. By removing their titles, King Charles and Prince William had effectively disarmed the couple's primary source of leverage. Without the titles, continuing to attack the institution risked appearing less like a crusade for truth and more like a bitter reaction to a necessary institutional decision. The couple found themselves boxed into a strategic corner where silence offered no progress, but public complaint promised diminished returns. Inside the United Kingdom, the royal family moved swiftly to solidify the new era, demonstrating that the monarchy remained vibrant, relevant, and entirely unfazed by the storm. Prince William and the Princess of Wales emerged as the undisputed pillars of this modernized institution, stepping into higher-profile global roles with an air of absolute composure. Their focus turned toward long-term societal initiatives, mental health advocacy, early childhood development, and environmental innovation, building a direct, meaningful connection with younger generations of Britons and Commonwealth citizens. The public response within the UK was overwhelmingly stabilizing. Polling reflected a marked rise in approval for King Charles III and Prince William, with a clear majority viewing the firm resolution of the Sussex situation as a strong, necessary act of leadership that restored dignity to the crown and protected the future of the nation's most historic institution. The broader Commonwealth, spanning 56 nations across the globe, also absorbed the impact of this royal realignment. For several years, critics had suggested that the internal friction within the royal family threatened to weaken the ties binding the Commonwealth together. But the decisive action taken in London re-established an atmosphere of clear authority and purpose. Foreign heads of state and diplomats recognized that the crown had successfully recentered itself on